Well, moving on, let's tell you that power has slowly returned to Nigeria's electricity distribution companies who reported a total system collapse on Thursday after a fire on a major transmission line causing widespread blackouts across Africa's biggest economy. Minister of Power Adebayo Adelabu said that fire had caused an explosion on a transmission line connecting the Kainji and Jebba power plants in north-central Nigeria's Niger state, tripping the national grid. Data from the transmission company of Nigeria, the TCN, showed that the power generation in the country fell to zero in the early hours, but had risen to 1,341 megawatts by 14 hours West African time. It's still well below the daily average of 4,100 megawatts. Well, joining us now to look at this development is President of the National Union of Electricity Employees, Martin Uzoegbu, joins me now on NC Continental Prime. Martin, thank you very much for your time.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me.
Can you please provide us with an update of the recent national grid collapse and what might have caused it?
Yeah, thank you very much. From the information at my disposal, yeah, it was as a result of fault that created such tripping that caused the system collapse. Yeah, such fault could be transient, but it could be permanent. But in this case, it has a ripple effect, and that ripple effect was what necessitated the system collapse. Like I was informed that there was the tripping at Jebba area 330 kV, and that tripping, of course, is a 330 kV line, and the line is made up of the grid system, and the grid system is an interconnectivity between the generating station, the transmitting station, and the sub-transmitting stations. So once that interconnectivity has a dislocation from one arm, then of course, especially when there is a load rejection from that area, especially a heavy load, then of course there should be a ripple effect. And moreover, Jebba is a strategic area. Jebba Kainji is a strategic area because it has is a hydro power generating area which has a base load. Most times we are comfortable in this country because those areas are generating because of the hydro. So anytime there is an effect in that area, it tends to have a ripple effect in the system. So that was the reason why when there was issue as a result of tripping caused by a kind of an outbreak, so the system couldn't stabilize because of that, because of the load that we are involved and the frequency we are moving up and down. And in some cases people recorded on the frequency, and at the end of the day the system go down. So
this tripping you're talking about, Mr. Uzoegbu, is it the same as the fire incident that the Honorable Minister is talking about? I mean, you are in the system, you lead the union there, so you have your men on the ground. Is it the same, this tripping due to overloading that caused frequency issues? Is it the same as the fire incident the minister was talking about? It's a technical word, so help us understand, please.
No, of course, it's a chain reaction. Once there is a fire outbreak, of course, the relays could see it as a fault. You understand? And it's happening on the circuit. You understand? And when the circuit see it as a fault, the relay will pick it. And once the relay pick it, they see it as a fault. And then the relay, the circuit breakers will respond. Of course, when they respond, it's going to reject the load. And once it rejects the load, it bounce back to the generating station. And once it bounce back to the generating stations, you are pulling a heavy load from the grid, and that will equally help to destabilize the grid. And once the grid is not stable and couldn't have the control, of course, the next line of action is either you have a partial collapse or you have a total collapse.
Okay, before I move on to another question, the last time we had a major national grid collapse when Buhari was still president, news filtered out that the nation's transmission infrastructure is outdated and can't carry even the electricity that Nigeria is producing and transmit it to the distribution companies. Is that part of what we are seeing play out here? Because you talked about overloading, something like that.
Yeah, of course, of course. You see, this is 10 years after privatization, and just like some of us has canvassed that Nigeria for now, we are not ripe for privatization. We kicked against it. Our union kicked against privatization because we discovered that it was not done. There was no transparency in the privatization, and that was why we were able to say no and let us be able to see how we can liberalize it, commercialize it, let government, come up with a plan of building its own stations in line with the private sectors. But that went to the deaf ears, and they privatized the only 4,000 megawatts that we had. So everything, is equally works between the fact that there is no, kind of maintenance in the sector. One is that the distribution angle has a lot of issues to play, because one is that most of the equipment that are being used as of 10 years ago is still what is being used in the distribution angle. Then the same thing with the generating angle. No generations has been increased since then. You can imagine for over 10 years, we are still maintaining 4,000, sometimes less than 4,000 megawatts after 10 years. So if there is improvement, remarkable improvement after 10 years, after privatization, we should be talking about 10,000 megawatts, but that is not the case. So you see that the whole privatization issue has failed, and we need to go back to the drawing board to revisit it.
Quite interesting and very deep words you've shared there. Are there any safety measures in place or that could be put in place, if there are none, to prevent such incidents in the future, like the one caused on the transmission line yesterday, today?
Yeah, there are, because one is that, this is more than a year that we've recorded the system collapse, and I give kudos to the transmission sector, because they were able to stabilize the system for over 1 year, which has never happened before. You could recall that as last year or last 2 years, the system collapse becomes like a everyday thing, but for over 1 year, and we have not recorded that kind of system collapse. But it's very unfortunate that this happens, and this is a breakdown, and such breakdowns do occur because it's not an intentional thing. And once it comes like this, it has a ripple effect. But I believe that there are so many things that we need to put in place. Then we need to look at making the power sector to be robust, in terms of, putting the right people in the right places, that has the capacity, that has the competence, that has the character to be able, the political will to be able to decide on what to do with the power sector. We need to have an emergency situation in the power sector, and we equally need to look at the funding of the sector. The transmission need funding, the distribution need funding, the generating stations need funding. And in fact, I expected that in the next 10 years, we should have a plan on how we can be able to improve the generation capacity. We can't continue to rover around 4,000 megawatts and expect a different result. And the distribution angle has the willing capacity from the record I have, has the willing capacity to wheel up to 8,000 megawatts. But has we generated up to 8,000 megawatts? The answer is no. So we should be looking at it from that angle. Let us, increase the capacity in terms of generation. Then equally look at the distribution angle that will equally take this generation that is being wheeled by the transmission sector. Because if the generation generates up to 8,000 or 10,000 megawatts or 20,000 megawatts, as the case may be, and the transmission has the capacity to wheel that 10 or 20,000 megawatts, do the distribution angle has the capacity to be able to distribute these 20,000 or 10,000 megawatts to the consumers? You know, it's a holistic chain. And this is where NEC, which is the regulators, need to come in to be able to do the oversight function and monitor these sectors and sanction those who are supposed to be sanctioned. Now, in this case, some of these things we are generating, and yet people are complaining that they don't have electricity. Why is this? Because one is that either the transformers are faulty or the feeder pillars are not good. So, of course, even if you are generating 20,000 megawatts and the consumers are not feeling it, then of course we are not doing anything. So there's a whole lot of things need to be done in that chain.
Thank you so much.
From the distribution angle to the transmission angle and generating sector.
Thank you so much. Mr. Uzoegbu, President, National Union of Electricity Employees, thank you so much for your time, and we'll definitely watch this space.